Good morning, everyone. Going back to 2015, here's Garrick Cozier, and he says, quote, CBC cut out the Home Alone 2 Donald Trump cameo. That was at 5:31 on December 20th, 2015, and he got 6 retweets and 37 likes. So it's worth noting, in 2015, somebody noticed that CBC cut Trump's cameo. I just wanted to update you guys. CBC was potentially telling exactly what happened. They acquired the film in 2014 and cut that for 8 minutes of total time cut so they could fit in commercials. And somebody else made a point on Twitter that the bigger question is, why is a Canadian taxpayer-funded entity like the CBC paying money to acquire rights to something that Canadians can get access to through watching a bunch of different American stations, like everybody was renting Home Alone 2. So maybe that's the better question. Here is a Guardian, and somebody tweeted this out, and 2020 is only a few days away, everybody. It's the 28th of December, and there's 31 days in December. So we're only a couple of days away from 2020. Isn't that unbelievable? It feels like the future, right? I remember watching Terminator 2, and 1996 felt like the future then as well. So it's been a few times it felt like the future. But there's this decade switchover is kind of a funny one. In 1999, there was the Y2K bug. In 2012, I think there was the Mayan calendar. Everybody was worried, the catastrophe. Oh no, the upcoming catastrophe. And there's no 2020 catastrophe on the horizon, except that the whole world, the Western world anyway, is talking end of the world doomsday scenarios for climate change with absolutely no proof. So I think this is funny. This is timely and all that. So let's go to the real article. Link is in the description if you want to read it. It says, now the Pentagon tells Bush climate change will destroy us. This was originally published in 2004, February 2004. Okay? Sunday, 22nd of February. And it says, secret report warns of rioting and nuclear war. Britain will be Siberian in less than 20 years. Threat to the world is greater than terrorism. Ooh. I think terrorism said in 2004. Hold on a second. Challenge accepted. Okay. And it says climate change over the next 20 years could result in a global catastrophe. Okay. A secret report suppressed by the U.S. defense chiefs and obtained by the Observer warns that major European cities will be sunk beneath rising seas as Britain is plunged into a Siberian climate by 2020. Okay, and is the Observer like the National Enquirer? I have no idea. It seems maybe that they are, because the Siberian climate is usually minus 5 degrees and minus 25 in January, just for a comparison. And right now in Ellesmere Port, which is in the UK, it's 9 degrees Celsius and sunny. Yeah, so it's garbage. It's garbage. It was garbage then, and now that we're paying carbon taxes, it's garbage now. It's not happening. The doomsday people are wrong. They were wrong for Y2K. They were wrong for the Mayan calendar, and they're wrong for this. And it's insulting and unbelievable that the poorest people among us, the people who can least afford to pay it, are paying these taxes. Look at the Ontario the Minister for Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. He's saying, quote, the federal carbon tax cost me $50.11 more for natural gas just last month. This tax impacts seniors, families, and small businesses across the province, making everything more expensive. That's why our government will keep fighting this job-killing tax. Good. They should. It's unbelievably offensive. The poorest Canadians can least afford this tax, just like all of the other taxes that we're paying. I mean, from GST to municipal taxes, to provincial taxes, to income taxes, right? HST on taxes, right? Carbon taxes, GST on carbon taxes. It's insulting. It's incredible. And the doom and gloom is, false. Siberian climate is not happening in 4 days. That's not happening. It's not happening. Here, see? Here we go. There's Friday. It's supposed to be 8 and rainy. It's not happening. It's just false. And no matter which way you slice it, right? Here's New Year's Day, 2020. It's not Siberian. So I think that's worth noting. Moving on, here's the Chronicle Herald. reporting Canadians won't be allowed to work on portions of new Canadian spy planes because of U.S. security regulations. Canadians won't be allowed to work on parts of the country's new surveillance aircraft because they contain sensitive American-made equipment that can only be handled by U.S. citizens. Maintenance of the equipment installed in new planes that will be operated by Canadian Special Forces will be off limits to both Canadian military personnel and Canadian aerospace workers. Instead, the gear or the aircraft will have to be sent to the U.S. for maintenance, or U.S. government staff will have to travel to Canada to work on the planes. The equipment is subject to strict U.S. security regulations. Canadian Special Forces are to receive 3 surveillance aircraft from the U.S. government. The planes are expected to arrive in spring 2022. The Beechcraft King airplanes, to be based at CFB Trenton, will be outfitted with sensors and equipment to intercept cell phones and other electronic transmissions and track individuals and vehicles on the ground. Canadian Special Forces and potentially other federal government departments and the RCMP will use the aircraft for missions overseas and in Canada. Canada is paying the U.S. government $188 million for the aircraft. The overall value of the project is estimated to be $247 million. The funding includes the acquisition of the aircraft, the prime mission equipment from the U.S., and initial portion of the associated in-service support of the planes. The main contractor is Beechcraft in Wichita, Kansas. The maintenance plan for the sensitive equipment that only Americans can work on has yet to be put in place, but the Canadian military is hoping it won't disrupt aircraft operations too much. Quote, arrangements for the maintenance of certain specialized equipment are not yet in place. Therefore, details and costs are not known at this time, Public Service and Procurement Canada spokeswoman Stephanie Hamill noted in an email. However, Canada will ensure that the sustainment strategy supports continued operations while maintenance is underway. I'm going to just break in here. This is me. I think it's interesting that the costs of the maintenance aren't known yet. I thought that, like, when you're negotiating something like this, if they say only our mechanics can do it and blah, 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 blah. Usually, if somebody says that to me, only the dealer can do the oil changes. Okay, well, how much do the oil changes cost? Well, buy the car and then we'll tell you. Oh, okay. What's the schedule? Like, what's the maintenance schedule? After you buy the car, we'll let you know. Oh, okay. And how much does the car cost? $188 million. So, right? I feel kind of duped on this one. I don't know. Okay, back to the article. The government has not provided details on what parts of the aircraft are covered by the U.S. security regulations. I think that's pretty normal. You can't be like, oh, it's these 3 parts, right? Because you're going to put a target on it. So anyway, back to the article. Another in-service support contract for the aircraft themselves and related mechanical equipment will be put in place. Canadians will be able to do that work. A request for proposals from Canadian firms for that work is expected to be issued in January or February. The contract would cover maintenance and support over a 20-year period. Canadian aerospace firms had originally wanted to provide the aircraft and onboard equipment, and in 2013, a number of companies responded when the federal government initially outlined its need for such planes. But the Canadian military decided it needed the planes more quickly than they believed Canadian companies could deliver. The military was also concerned there could be delays if the onboard sensor equipment used was subject to U.S. security regulations. The Canadian companies, however, felt they could meet the military's needs with Canadian-made equipment that wouldn't be covered by U.S. regulations, allowing Canada more flexibility, but the Canadian government instead opted for the American-made solution, which has also been used by Canadian Special Forces in Afghanistan. The agreement for the aircraft was finalized on April 26, 2019, with the U.S. government. Canadian Special Forces personnel recently trained with similar surveillance aircraft operated by the U.S. in mid-November. Members of 427 Special Operations Aviation Squadron and the Canadian Special Operations Regiment, both based in Petawawa, conducted an exercise supported by one of the American aircraft. The U.S. plane operated from the Ottawa airport, and flights occurred between Petawawa and Mansfield at Pontiac, Quebec, according to Canadian Special Forces. So, I think it's interesting. I mean, on one side, it's working more closely with the Americans and using their tech. On the other side, why can't we have a built-in Canada solution? So, I mean, it's always a double-edged sword. Always a double-edged sword. Because if you want to work closely with the United States, which Canada does, then having the same tech makes a lot of sense, right? Building your own system, unless they're making APIs available, like, here, plug into our system with your system. It just makes it more complex, right? It's more difficult to share data that way. But again, I like made in Canada solutions. So And here's the last story for this morning. I saw this posted yesterday, and it says full listing of new Order of Canada recipients, and companions of the order include Stephen Harper, former Prime Minister of Canada. And it says Calgary for his long-standing career in politics and for his service to the nation as the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada. And there are other people being induced into the order as well. So members of the order are getting the prize or the honor as a local person, somebody who has an impact in their local community. People who are getting it as officers of the order are getting it as like provincial area or not provincial, national, keeping it within Canada. So doing something good for the country that's recognized on the national level. And companions of the order are national and international. Here's the Order of Canada website, and I'm going to make sure I got that right. Here's companion. Yeah, companion is international service or achievement. Officer is national service, and member is local or regional. So I got it mostly right, so sorry about that. And here's what the Order of Canada says. Order of Canada. The Order of Canada is how our country honors people who make extraordinary contributions to the nation. Since its creation in 1967, Canada's centennial year, more than 7,000 people from all sectors of society have been invested into the order. The contributions of these trailblazers are varied, yet they have all enriched the lives of others and made a difference to this country. Their grit and passion inspire us, teach us, and show us the way forward. They exemplify the order's motto. I'm not going to try it. They desire a better country. Do you know a Canadian who's changing the game? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, somebody nominate somebody today is essentially what they're saying. So there's lots of people on this list, not just Stephen Harper, but the link is in the description. You can check it out for yourself. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your holidays. I hope you've got some plans for New Year's Eve, and I hope you've had a good time watching all of Home Alone 2. And check out CanadaPoly.com and have a wonderful, wonderful